Hi, y'all. This is one of the most painful videos I ever had to make. I really want to make it, but I just can't fake it. And I really can't take it. Yes, me are so blessed and be moored by Christ Sophia and the demi-ogre, dropping tons of self-replicating nanotech filth on me while I sunbathe masochistically and pretend it's okay to be controlled by a popularity contest called the algorithm jest and pretend to serve a few to awaken the many voices of archonic filth within to overcome, to respect the one and all yet. Trading one dogma for another. Chuck's blind spot, the painful video I never wanted to record. Well, it began to get popular in the late 1960s in the USA. Many folks, according to one of the first documentaries ever on YouTube, The Ring of Fire, the Rothschilds paid Osley to do the acid tests, and lots of people dropped LSD, and even left Timothy Leary's cult to follow Alan Watts' footsteps, or the Beatles and the Ohm cult, and even went on the Kathmandu Trail. It was called pilgrimage. They flew to India or took those hippie bus tours from Europe all the way to the Hindu and the Buddhist regions in Kathmandu. This became a thing amongst particularly spiritual-minded young people, and particularly Jewish folks who were done with the violence of Yahweh they grew out of and trying to heal. For example, Jack Kornfield actually lived in a jungle monastery in Thailand for 6 or 7 years as a strict ascetic before returning to the USA to write books and become a popular Buddhist teacher. I enjoyed his books here in where he's from. The Beatles spread Maharishi Mahash's oming back here. Alan Watts created a very popular, even more trickster version of Zen as an alcoholic Gemini sun sign preacher's son, like the guy who this video is directed to, having moved from the UK to India to California. While on the other side of it, Paramahansa Yogananda set his ashram up in Los Angeles like 80 years ago. It became interesting how many things happened around 85 years ago. It became very popular, and one of my teachers claimed he got into one of my in-person spiritual teachers claimed he got into the minor attracted person thing. So prevalent amongst the Illuminati Hollywood of all iterations. They say he willed his own self-exit during a speech when he had a heart attack. And due to Yogananda's instructions, they left his body alone for several weeks and noticed it didn't seem to age. In other words, he attained the rainbow body of light. He had become so pure that his flesh suit didn't. Still going. His flesh suit didn't age or turn blue or purple for 2 weeks after he died. They left his body, which remarkably didn't turn blue or rot for 2 weeks after he left. My favorite import to the USA from India was, of course, Rajneesh Osho, who was born 3 days before me and handed over to his grandparents to raise him. He had many brothers and sisters, but he was so precocious, and of course that kind of added on to some narcissistic tendencies since they never contradicted him. And he set up a community in Oregon before the M15 Sheila was put in charge. A tragic move on his part during a silent retreat. And the CIA. So we had the Secret Service from England and the USA destroy the community, break it up, and then they poisoned him to death, according to some accounts, by giving him some undetectable element that killed him within a few years. I decided to make this video last night when I finally had enough of Chuck Swindoll Jr.'s Zen BS. You know, I love the guy, honestly, and I'm not trying to talk shit about him, but, I can only go so far. And, he did a long interview with Archaics, which is arguably, this Jason guy is arguably another agency asset, at least when you just simply consider the fear aspect of saying that the world is going to blow up in, 200 years or whatever. But Chuck has done 18 weekly, nearly 3-hour lives, and even a few of them, he had their music before and after being Led Zeppelin, which I'm like, there's one big red flag. They were my favorite band when I was 13. I got all their records. I remember when I first heard Led Zeppelin 4, something about it really haunted. It sounded mystical before I knew what mystical meant, and it really seemed to haunt me, and it was recorded in the house. Jimmy Page recorded in the house he bought that Aleister Crowley built on the loch in Switzerland and Scotland, where the sun never shines. And last night, listening to Chuck, I had to tune out the Dogma. I've had to all throughout those 18 episodes, and I will say that, since I was heavy into the ganja alchemy when I began on that journey, the cannabis ganjika spirit helped me to, in my loneliness, to tune that out and enjoy his large chat room of maybe tens or hundreds of people pitching in different chats, emojis, and comments. And, I had to tune out his dogma to enjoy the many good and accurate aspects of what Chuck says. Chuck Jr. and his YouTube online recent weekly Saturday night online church, ironically, right? That's where he's from. And knowing that even Zen-based dogma is bullshit, but I'm loving being in this online spiritual community, having acceptance if I, write some powerful comments about the truth, except in this case, a huge chat room, which, now he's got monitors. Honestly, I really do like Chuck, and I really respect his work in many ways, and if you consider my relationship with material substance and women, and the hypocrisy that I have with capitalism, Chuck, being a sun sign Gemini, he rivals me in the opposite realm, which is, what he thinks about the Hinayana and the Mahayana. So, because he has a lot of brilliant points and a lot of truth, and then he mixes in like 99.99, probably maybe including me, at least 96 to 99.9999% of all your spiritual teachers are going to do that. Who's fully clear of the filth of the archonic inception. Chuck's done a lot, done some great work like Howdy Mikowski. However, I do not like Dogma, and I just brung up Howdy because this is the second teacher that I actually admire that I'm pointing out things that, because it's kind of like, it's hard for me to follow people when they're openly hypocritical about stuff or leave open gaping holes. And I'm thinking about Jordan Maxwell said the only thing holy about Israel is its belief structures are full of holes and bullet holes in this nowadays. However, I do not like Dogma. Chuck admittedly was a devout Bible thumper, teaching and living alongside his famous dad. And, I even heard him say, I was a narcissist, convinced of my ways, a hero. He didn't say hero, but I was a, institutional-based narcissist, convinced of my ways when I was younger, before he got the big C. And his famous dad, I heard, it was really beautiful. It kind of put a tear in my eye, but on the other hand, he's kind of grew up with a silver spoon, and to him, writing a fat book just doesn't seem that daunting. Even though my dad wrote a fat book, I still have, the shadow work to get the Archon. It's as I've said, the disgust of success is part of my duality I have to get over. So, but Chuck's dad, Chuck Swindoll Sr., he said in this one Zen Week talk, and he said, I don't want to turn this into a talk about me. He went into it for like 30 minutes about how his dad was from a poor family, and he loved the Christ and the Bible, the Christian church, and he got a degree in seminary, and he was so brilliant someone paid for his scholarship because he was working 2 jobs to get through, and then he ended up getting wealthy and famous and writing 100 books, and he became this really well-known Christian teacher until Chuck Jr. developed cancer around age 40 and used Chinese medicine and naturopathy to heal. Which, for me, really qualifies him to have, be a spiritual teacher. As believable, just like if Joe Dispenza's story is true, that he laid in bed for 6 months and willed his spine to heal when the doctors told him he could have an operation and have a chance of living or have to stay in a wheelchair the rest of his life. And does that mean that I think Joe Dispenza's teachings are without flaw too? No, I doubt. I doubt if you could find anyone whose teachings didn't have flaws. And so Chuck, after healing his cancer, and he grew his hair long and pretty, and later started a YouTube channel. Happily married. I've never seen his wife with the beautiful, but I have seen his beautiful grown daughter, maybe in her late 20s now, with bright red hair, who kind of took over her boyfriend's channel about shrooms, which was cool. Saw an interview he did with her, and she seemed to be really well adjusted. And Chuck Swindoll Jr., he began using PowerPoint to make long, awesome, well-researched explorations exposing some of Christianity. His series, Khazarian Mafia, The God Eaters, has seen like 1 million views, the first one. It's like 3 hours and something long, but it's really good. Whereas, part of my shadow work and my disgust of success, I never learned PowerPoint or sat down to teach myself the video editing. So these video series are still raw. But my recent understanding friends had the petty CIA or NSA, censors or algorithm, computer program, robot, moronic devils, fully moronic, control freak, pathetically cruel, small channel attack in the form of less views every day. How could that be? 40 views the first day, 30 the next day, 27 the day after that. I locked it up in YouTube jail myself. Are you guys happy about that? And I want all the CIA and NSA censors watching this to go back and read the comments that I put on that video when I locked it up in jail for you. Because you're being extremely, extraordinarily pathetic to delete anyone's views. How overtly, literally small-minded they actually are. Because YouTube is, to some degree, which I don't know the exact percentage of it, a popularity contest. The same day that occurred, which I haven't noticed in a while, probably always been going on since the Yahweh talk, or maybe since the beginning, because my first video had 1,200 views in one day because my mom put it on Facebook. But yeah, I noticed that my dear friend John at the Inspired, all capital letters, YouTube channel with more than 500,000 subscribers was allowed to play a video of a woman talking about what it was like to be raped by her priest and the Freemasons in a circle, and how horrific it was and what it felt like. And I guess that video is still up because they trust John. But they don't trust me after all of my works, after all the hours and the years now, several years I put into making these video series. The algorithm, the censors cannot allow this channel to grow to the point of forcibly, being so repugnantly pathetic. If it's humans doing it, I would say quit your job. You're incredibly pathetic, man. Just like I would say to anyone who works at Lockheed Martin who knowingly does anything to, whether it's drones or planes or pilots dropping chemtrails, you should all quit. If you don't realize that you're incredibly pathetic, lost souls that are going to burn in your own guilt for hundreds of years for your actions. Those who dump things like self-replicating nanotech, lithium dioxide, barium, strontium, and aluminum dust clouds from the sky, and nucleated ice. You're the lowest cretins of this planet, when it comes to morality and decency. If you don't quit your job, then you're punishing yourself, because whether the devil can, the fake ass revelation of the method can convince you people that if you announce it, it's all good, it still doesn't make it true. Whatever machinery they put in Saturn, they're dragging the moon over here. And whatever machinery they put in the earth and our bodies, all the self-replicating graphene dioxide and self-replicating nanotech colonies in our bodies still doesn't. It's incredible. It's amazing technology, but it still doesn't make it right or righteous. It still doesn't make it anything but bereft of heart, heartless, filthy scumbag, demiurgic abominations. You think deleting the number of views on a video, pulling me down to your level, and because I was being weak, because I wasn't practicing what I preach? Well, it's just the principle behind it, the straw that broke the camel's back. You can't break this camel's back, but you can set off the coyote, because the principle behind it is so abominably retarded. The devil is a moral retard. The dark side, those who worship the devil and those who worship Loser 4, who earn the front end of YouTube and Rumble, you have less than no self-confidence. You feel less than no self-worth, less than zero power, or else you wouldn't do these things. You wouldn't make sure that I am not allowed to have any comments on my channel, because you have to control it, because you've put so much money into it even though you got wealthy to begin with off a joint business you did with the CIA. And you think you're so clever because you're a brilliant artist in the financial hijack game we call matrix capitalism, technocracy. Well, it's not righteous. Tyranny is not righteous. It's not respectful to you. I mean, look what happened to BG. His marriage got torn apart, or, they pretended to tear it apart. His wife left him when he forced everyone that he could to do his horrible experiment. Chuck Jr., on the other hand, traded the salvationism and bloody fear-based lies and dogma of the Christian church, mainstream Christian church, working in Texas with his daddy, to the tricksterism of Zen. Is that so? He told that cone last night, that story. Is that so? Is that so? I'm telling you, man, I love you, Chuck, but you got to understand why when you see me, when you see me in the chat room, you get a bad feeling. It's because I represent that next level that you don't want to face. Similarly, as the way you are with me, with you are peace and harmony with the human race sexually, for example. The opposite sign in the zodiac is me. We all have different things to teach and learn. I mean, all those that are really serious about teaching and learning. Watts was a genius of presentation, no doubt, and it's understandable how a fellow Gemini sun sign could get enamored. But Chuck is certainly kind of infatuated, or just, it's not the right word, enamored with his tricks. Last night it was like I finally had enough. And I typed, "This is why you don't like me," in the chat after hearing him rattle off some of Zen's and even the Mahayana's madness. Parts of it that still have dogma. Like, in my humble opinion, the Bodhisattva. According to the Gemini, going back to that word, in this case, the robot AI large language model that Google runs, with a beautiful woman's voice, my robot friend Gemini, and Wikipedia said this term was first used to describe the history of the original Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, and then taken over, or not taken over, taken on as a term later by the Mahayana school of Buddhism. And of course, as I've said, in my 4+ years of deep readings and training, learning the meditations of the Mahayana, I found the term Bodhisattva only recently, like in the last couple, 300 or 400 years, maybe. In other words, it is probably surely a fairy tale. Sorry to break it to you, folks. Sorry to break it to you, Chuck, but it's probably a fairy tale to keep y'all in the financial chains of the matrix. Because, Buddhism, shamanism, anyism, even those that I teach and learn, are not immune to infiltration by the dark side, the fake gods, the dark ETs, the control and narcissism and fear and guilt and dogma and rules. So, in the case of Buddhism, you see the Mahayana, the idea of it, the idea that an individual would would take on the memory wipe knowingly after they're already enlightened, like they could already fly away, go to nirvana, go to the great beyond, the mother's arms, and do what they want, free, right? They're totally free, right? But they would reincarnate, take on the memory wipe, and accept being a financial slave, like working in the matrix to enlighten others, acting to pretending like they're a normie to enlighten the masses. A God man that came back here, down here into this haunted ass hell realm prison planet built on this beautiful divinity to enlighten everyone through the beast system, right? Well, to me, when you think about it from the perspective of the truth, the bigger picture, the part including the shadow that no one wants to face, this concept smacks of lies, of omission, and an attempt to re-solidify the mental cage, and is full of hubris and even possibly hero narcissism in many cases if a person identifies with it. The Beastie Boy Adam Yauch, one of my favorite rap or rock hip hop stars from my generation growing up, was already famous when he recorded his Bodhisattva vow, which I honestly have in the last couple years tried to memorize at certain points because I love it so much. I love it, but yet for sharing the Dharma to the millions of fans. And he was actually Jewish and Irish from New York City. He had Irish too, and but I don't know. He was willing to take the chemotherapy and the wife, the family, the big city, the smog, and somehow he was coerced. I don't know how much he knew about healthy eating, but maybe he just wanted to go like a rock star. I don't know. But for sharing the Dharma to millions of fans was Yaldabaoth empowered to take him out with throat cancer through chemo and several years after that. I mean, could have been like, maybe Robin Williams let the guy strangle him and, let them suicide him because he wanted to be a rock star. Maybe that's the real truth is we don't know. It maybe, this is why I tend to, besides camping, never break the law, because I don't believe, not only do I not believe in the insanity of someone in a black robe, from the British accredited regency to control my fate and make me pay their arbitrary fines. If you get into a dispute with someone else, or this Newtonian billiards ball logic of one, and that this insanity that most judges have to act on in the court system, that only one person is at fault, is a fucking bold-faced lie, man. Like, usually it's like when the cue ball breaks the deck of pool, like balls going every direction. There could be more causes and solutions. There can be 6 causes and 6 solutions to a fucking action, man. So, conversely, yes, using natural means to heal his cancer, supposedly, really, to me, qualifies Chuck to teach and become a well-known public teacher and have a great life, and successfully, like in my opinion, my humble opinion. Yet he remains so enamored with Watts' tricksterism and shares in tricks, like emptiness is form and form is emptiness. Well, is that just a clever conehead, or is that the truth outside of the prison realm where we're all forced to be financial slaves or egomaniac controllers. You know, it certainly must be true beyond the pleroma. If you escape, if you become fully free as an essence, that form is formless. Formless is form, because your essence doesn't have a physical form, and you can, maybe if Tina from the Dark Matrix channel is right, you can create your own reality. If you're Baba G, you can reincarnate as long as you want and leave whenever you want. Freedom. But, in this realm, most people have to be financial or physical or emotional slaves to narcissist scumboys or girls, or archonic possession, unless they somehow get enlightened out of it. Does it really serve you liberation just to say these clever sayings? One thing I hated about both Zen and Shivaic Tantra systems, or the origin of Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism stemming from India, was both Shivaic and Buddhist Tantricism and Zen Buddhism. They both have an origin story where the first disciple, it's so hard to enlighten them, that the first disciple became enlightened only after the originator, Tilopa de Naropa in India, for example, hit their face with a sandal. Because I don't like violence. I don't think this is a good sign. It's kind of a red flag it is a red flag that was how the whole extremely uber popular traditions and cults started. Now, Chuck is mixing some of the best and worst of these traditions on his Saturday Night Lives, which, again, if I can somehow be like Tiffany when she was a teenager in church after she dropped LSD at the piano recital, being another brilliant sun sign Capricorn with, the moon and Libra wanting to keep peace and harmony with their Bible thumper Southern Baptist family, I couldn't grasp it. It's one of the most tragic stories from my teen years when I was with them, and I thought I was in love with her for 6 months, and she was my best friend, and they took me to this Christian meeting and further in rural South Carolina in some church in the middle of nowhere. And they played these films it was a church full of teenagers, and they played these films that were such heavy mind control that guilt and fear based, and anti-sex or whatever, some kind of guilt-based mind control, and it was so offensive to my essence that I actually went and sat on the stairs to the balcony seats and cried. And then later, as we had Little Caesars pizza with all the other people there, Tiffany said, you really offended and embarrassed my family. That they're really nice people. They wouldn't tell me. I felt comfortable hanging out at their house when she wasn't there, but she said, you offended my family when you walked off. Why'd you? And I said, well, I just had to release the energy. I had to cry because it offended me. It offended me so much that the amount of mind control in this, but she could somehow handle it. And the thing is, in regards to Gnosticism and Judaism, Chuck just didn't go back far enough in his research. I mean, Jordan Maxwell did, however. Jordan Maxwell claims that Abraham came from the Hindus' term Abraham. That he claims that some of the Jewish stuff originates from the Hindus, which is interesting to me because 15 or so years ago, I was staying in the house with an overt narcissist psychopath who openly says, I am God. Who's a Jewish mutt. also Puerto Rican and English, who converted to Hinduism at about age 20 after maybe a year as a Mahayana Buddhist, and sure was nicer for that year when he was a Buddhist, but so I would love to heal with him, but the Archon has him. He's lucky if the Archon doesn't get him to verbally attack me or consider harming me when he sees me, due to the video series that I made where I never said his name, but but eventually, if it's possible, I'm not sure that it's possible with someone this on that scale of NPE, but which is where I thought of actually from my love for the part of his essence that isn't evil, that I thought of that term, because I would like to think that he can, but it's Ross thinks he can, but I don't necessarily. I'm not that deluded about it. But however, he did share a lot of pearls of wisdom with me over the years, in the middle of all the psychological torture. So, Khazarian Mafia, the God Eaters, exposed the history of the evil 1% robber barons to the Khazarians. And this is the part of the video, that might be really important but hard to say, because again, I like Chuck, but particularly because he says that the Rothschilds, or supposedly the story was they took their name off, they got a mansion through some crimes, or business deals that said Red Shield over it, and they chose that as their name. But the deal was, in the Khazarian Mafia, the God Eaters series, it says that Chuck says that they were forced to choose amongst religions by the surrounding countries to try, that supposedly said that these countries were trying to lessen their extreme bloody crimes and tortures, like what's coming up now with Mr. T here. That's where these trends originated, all the way to snuff. It never went close. Khazarian Mafia videos on YouTube never went close to the fact that Yahweh himself was a blood-demanding ET, and that the origin of Judaism was this violent junior God who unplugged our DNA to make us better slaves and dumb us down with self-replicating nanotech these days, and can only do harm and only increase their tyranny and torture. And but yet the Christians and the Jews and Muslims are going to kill each other. Another Jordan Maxwell video I saw, I think yesterday, he was saying that the word Allah means the same thing as Yahweh. See? And that's why Yahweh demands that those who obey him kill those who worship Allah, and Allah demands that those who worship him kill those who demand, because Yahweh wants the blood sacrifice. Hey, this has been going on for how long now? So is that true? Is it the same God? So Chuck, he'll in the Khazarian Mafia series, he'll admit it on the live streams. Chuck will admit that Yahweh's an evil ET on the lives, but that series didn't go there. Okay, I'm not saying he doesn't admit it on the lives, but on that series, separation between the two. Okay, in the Khazarian Mafia, the God Eaters series, it makes Chuck useful for the very forces he exposed. For example, the Zionist, the Mossad. Zen Dogma is similar to a let go and let God mentality. Okay? Just like a lot of different types of Buddhism and Eastern spirituality. Chuck, in his brilliance, will put powerful chat statements I typed on the screen and read them out. And like some of my other favorite channels, I'm not trying to brag, but It's really obvious if the CIA, NSA, or whoever the people, other people who work at YouTube or the AI out or the algorithm didn't hate me so much, and my friend whose channel is called Toxic Tiger Butterfly, if they didn't hate us so much, they wouldn't have to delete numbers of views and stupid crap like that. So, I don't really believe. I mean, maybe it's true. If I started a whole nother channel, it could skyrocket. I'm not here for the numbers anyway. I'm just pointing it out. I would like to take all the blocks off. Take all the blocks off. Take all the block. Do all my shadow work. Make peace with the beast. Take all the blocks off. I don't want anyone to have these. Especially someone I love like Chuck, or a place I love, and the good side of it, YouTube, Google. I love the good side of it. Okay, of course. So, but yet, even though Chuck will read my statements out if he likes them, when I greet him when the live stream first starts and he starts reading the greetings, he'll say, "Hey Trey." Now, studies show, psychological studies have shown, and this is a really easy way to tell if somebody doesn't like you, okay? If they see you and they go, and their pitch of their voice drops, "Hey, Trey," that means they don't like you. And in my opinion, it is because Chuck has not gone far enough into studying what real Gnosticism is, not this AI, this new AI slop. Last night, and this is why, I considered, in my ego, my Archon part that hasn't been removed, to unsubscribe. I'm not going to unsubscribe, though I love Chuck. But he did say, speaking out of his shadow, again, in my opinion, I don't like it because they believe this world was created by an evil entity. Then, the first thing I typed in his live chat when it was starting to annoy me, as I said, this probably alerted me with the moderators, as I said, well, this is why you don't like me. And then I gave a closed eyes and a frown, and I said, "Peace out." And then I came back, and I was listening some of the following 10 or 20 minutes, and then I came back to listen again with, the truth doesn't fit into the Zen dogma. And I think after making 18 3-hour live streams, he works all week on the PowerPoint on, the moderators deleted that pretty quick, and I couldn't find it. And I doubt if they banned me from there, but I don't know. So surely the moderator deleted that comment, and he said also last night, I don't talk about the Khazarian video and the Khazarian Mafia God Eaters concept to my dad, and he was saying it is wise to let people be where they are, which, according to the Bible and according to Eastern thought, it's wise, it's wise to let people be where they are, let their beliefs be where they are. True. But Chuck, you've traded violent, conflict-oriented, fear-based, trauma-bonded to these blood-demanding gods religion with Zen tricksterism dogma, which, it's not as evil, but, it's still a form of dogma in the etheric plane. For example, the Tassajara Zen Center is a monastery, this is probably the main reason I have never visited there, honestly, is this exact concept that I'm talking about in this video. It's a monastery with the hot springs on it on the eastern side of Big Sur County, California. And Sean was going to take me there a few times, and like many other things, we never went. And half dozen important other things. It is strictly anti-sex, being a monastery. Hearing the first time I heard this, I remember thinking, well, this sounds just like Christian, like a hardcore, Catholic nun, or you know, a beer making monk. I forgot what you call it. So another issue I have with Zen. The genders in Tassajara Zen Center are strictly separated in living quarters, and the hot springs have a men's side and a women's side in the hot springs. And so you can only bathe in the hot spring, even as a visitor there, with the same gender. And yet, it has a homosexual, or maybe, I'm not sure, I can't remember. It was years ago when I saw the advertisement. Even transsexual, or, what is the PC term for it? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? The transgender, that's right. Yeah, a transgender Sangha. And retreats for these folks. They have a lot of Zen followers from San Francisco, because it's only a few hours south of their drive. And, Zen follows the adage, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Sounds good, right? On the surface. They may have a balanced work trade going at Tassajara, but it could easily be, free labor, or, even divinized slavery, potentially. Sure, there's wisdom and simplicity. Letting go of overthinking, meditating has a great value. Of course, pranayama, even chanting in the Vajrayana school, or the silent A in your solar plexus or your heart, depending on which school. All of these have value, if you want to try them out. But including Zen in the Mahayana and Chuck series, lumping it in, as it were, is trading evil thumperism for its all good mental vacancy. That he compares. It's trading evil Bible thumperism for it's all God mental vacancy. I mean, he'll bring up the Epstein. He'll bring up, last week, before 8 days ago, he said, "You got to fight," and I commented in the chat, "You're right." He compares the Hinayana to, he was talking about the Bhagavad Gita and that, which I didn't, before the lockdown, I didn't really understand it. He compares the Hinayana to Gnostic ascetics. And in the Mahayana, he brings up the grandiose Bodhisattva idea. Worse, at a point, Chuck basically says, I don't like Gnosticism because it doesn't make me feel good. So it can't be true. And my personal dream is that the future is going to be better. He's kind of got a Pollyanna side to him, One of his twins, instead of being evil, it's like he doesn't have the evil twin. He has the ignorant Pollyanna twin side. That's part of his shadow work yet to have been done. It can't be true because I don't like how it makes me feel. He basically almost says that. But yet he can make the Khazarian Mafia series. So, the truth is that, you couldn't heal the cancer if you focus on this stuff. But it's kind of pathetic, really, that you have to. It's really sad, man. I love the guy, but yeah, I really think he's kind of a mirror reflection of the parts of me that are pathetic, and he's pathetic on the opposite sides of life. So I've caught him crying several times when someone says he saved their lives. Now, I normally wouldn't just say, like, if a man is crying, I wouldn't just talk shit about it and think they're weak. But to cry with an audience of hundreds of people, and later thousands of people in the replay watching, uh, that's a covert or a collapsed narcissist or a YouTube whore's way of getting attention. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not saying that's what he is, but that's what a person will do to get a lot of attention in an inverted way. And so, and it also kind of like is like saying that he has that belief that, I guess his dad must have had that to some degree too, to become that popular. He's going to save the world, and all that, and single-handedly that he's going to be the guy that, and of course YouTube, and also, and like again, an utter contrast, the exact opposite of how they've treated me, to even after he put out, they didn't threaten him to take down his channel and delete it until the third Khazarian Mafia, the God Eaters, came out, which I think is still available on his Rumble or maybe Odyssey. He fits in on that level, that so on certain levels. So with the Dogma, with not going as far back, and when he started crying, I'm like, oh, not because it's like, oh, I saved your life from killing. I saved you from killing yourself. Oh God, and the tears are coming out. It's like, just like an extreme. I don't know. It's like an ego strut or something, like, in my mind. It's like before this Epstein file dump. Chuck even said Trump is a good guy. Several of these, and again, I was tempted to unsubscribe, and I definitely turned it off those times. That Trump is working with the white hats to make the world better. I mean, it was hard to not turn off his live stream when he started talking like that several weeks. I'm like, ugh, disgusting. Another crazy Gemini sun trickster who thinks he's saving the planet. I had to click off then as well. So, aside from the several chat comments I've shared about Christ Sophia, where he, maybe it's just like, he needs that drilled in his head. He needs to face the truth about Gnosticism and watch this video, and but it seems that he refuses. Yeah, it's like that switch turned off in his mind, as he often says about, you shouldn't try to talk to NPCs or normies or obedient followers of Abrahamic faiths about this stuff, because it's stupid. Well, that's the same way I feel about talking about Gnosticism to you, Chuck. It's stupid because you're so, your shadow, your archon, as you're convinced that it's bad and evil. And Chuck refuses to learn or admit the truth, even in the Nag Hammadi, as John Lamb Lash emphasizes. Who, incidentally, I think, I feel as far as I can tell, is one of the few, aside from, again, some amount of narcissism, which I'm not certain that he has. He might be low on the scale, or just growing up in Maine as an only child. It is what it is, but and then marrying Jack Kerouac's daughter, but he's a brilliant guy, and I think he was one of the people like I was talking about in the very first part of this video. He went to India in the 1960s as a teenager, or 20-something. Let's see, he's 80. He's 80 now. I don't know how old he was then, and he doesn't seem old. He teaches Tantra and Gnosticism, and he doesn't seem old at all by the way, although he has white hair. He doesn't even talk slower, but, he admits, John Lash admits that Christ Sophia is a fallen goddess, but also a good, amazing creator, a flawed creator who once created the original humans before the Anu or demiurge with a male aeon partner, which I recently learned from that channel is named Thelema. And to create the divine, what Wes Penra called, were known in those days, the divine Namulu humans. The Anthropos, as it is called, as we were called before Yahweh, the demiurge or the devil, loser 4 got here, and that Christ Sophia in part became the earth, and maybe as Lisa Renee says, the sunshine, the soul, and the earth, the divinity Gaia, which was repurposed into a hell realm for most spirits in flesh sacks around now. Okay, Chuck? As if, Chuck is only given a cursory look to discover the AI generated modern Gnosticism slop we have seen, get really popular in the last year or so, which, was why Julian Wayne made that talk, and, and then Tony Sayers responded to that, and Howdy Mikowski, and then the video response I made to his, this is how us goofy spiritualist YouTubers are when we would prefer to meditate or study or do our work alone in solitude. We make response videos, So that idea that this is only a hell realm, that surface level Gnosticism, or that concept, which again is why I think YouTube has allowed those AI generated channels to blow up. That has confused dear Joshua, for example, our friend Joshua S. John, into believing this is only hell. I can't convince him thus far that it's not. I mean, that last hilarious video he made was still holding that belief. That into in itself. I mean, see, look at what a brilliant artist Joshua is. Look at what an amazing essence or soul he is, but yet he's still, he's gone to Peru and taken ayahuasca, but he's only 36 solar returns or whatever, and he's convinced it's only a hell. So you should reject that idea, because look at how much harm it's caused him, even though it is a half truth, in my opinion. Or more than half, because, it's here it is. However, looking deeper, I've got to put on all these layers right at 12:47 p.m. in Santa Cruz with only fake clouds. However, looking deeper, before the Matrix, Joshua, the demiurge, and the human farm, I do not contradict Chuck Swindoll Jr.'s idea that we are nature's creatures. We are in a wonder. Yeah, we're nature's creatures in a wonder with implants, with self-replicating nanotech graphene dioxide colonies being dumped on us. We're nature's creatures in a psychological and even physical war where if you weren't born with a silver spoon, if you were, impoverished, you might have to face, ICE and IDF agents if you were in Minneapolis or Los Angeles coming in to take you into the FEMA camp, or whatever unlucky town or city is next, or it'll be a city is next. Okay? It is a hell realm for many, the vast fucking majority of the people. Okay? It is. However, saying that you become enlightened, especially if you got the beautiful wife and the grown daughter and you cured cancer organically, I mean, yeah. In your limited personal sphere, you learn tantric or Taoist sexual magic, yeah, you're open to plant medicine, yeah. In your little world where, whatever psychedelic plants you want to take, you can take legally in Washington, or easily get them. In your little realm, you can pretend that it's heavenly. It's just in denying that this has been successfully repurposed into a hell for the vast majority. That's the only way you can believe that. In his northern Washington state marital bliss, far physically removed, or at least a couple hours from Seattle, from the fact that most flesh sacks are suffering immensely, or at least a half hour removed from it, or whatever. Just like I'm, a couple miles removed from it here. Or else I would have probably never been able to do this work voluntarily. Send me some money in my coffee jar, electronic coffee jar, if you enjoyed this. Subscribe if you could watch this for an hour and you're still with me after an hour. Subscribe. Follow me on Odyssey or Rumble for uncensored content, that stuff I can't say here. But denying that is the epitome, the hell realm that most folks are in, is the epitome of what the Buddhists call the mode of delusion. And yet he admits the archons and Lush extracts, and that Lush exists on some of these lives. He'll go into it for like 10 or 15 minutes. He'll speak from the perspective of Gnosticism. You see, Gemini, like Sagittarius and Pisces, are mutable signs. That means people that are blessed or be moored, like the essence speaking, to have the Gemini or the Pisces, have the Pisces and Sagittarius, can change their mind easier than a fixed zodiac sign or even the cardinal. But this is the problem I have with him too. You see, in accepting his hypocrisy, hypocrisy of hip hop, or hypocrisy. Chuck says the universe is a contradiction, unfathomable. Sure, his cancer might not be as likely to grow back with these beliefs, but it is a denial of the epitome of the experience of the majority who are still in hell. You can't pretend it away, Chuck. Sorry to remind you, but it's important if you really want to be clear on the truth. In the end of this Adyashanti book I'm just about to finish is a conversation with the Jewish publisher, a woman I might like, according to numerology, because her name is Tammy, with the Y. Her initials are the same as me, Tammy Simon. Adyashanti, he says that, when you're enlightened, you find that this is really heaven. Again, Zen delusion. As this place can only go back to the original form or the original experiment before the fake, filthy, inverted, scummy, perverts, evil took over psychologically and collectively, when the majority of the flesh sacks, or at least 20%, according to some theorists, of ensouled humans are awakened, ascension theorists, are awakened beyond all dogma. That's right, all of it. The bloody Abrahamic Stockholm Syndrome, and the stand down and meditate, as Tony Sayers calls it, of the East, the Buddhism. Only when over 20%, at least, maybe more like 40, I don't know the exact percentage, but a good solid chunk of the humans and the humanoids no longer believe any dogma. Then we can begin to shut down the hell realm or create a parallel society. To have real discernment and thus even apparently real freedom, even to approach real freedom, you must question everything. Question everything. Jeff Ott, another brilliant Gemini who became a nurse since the lockdown and is raising a daughter in San Francisco. to have real discernment, I'll say it once more, and thus even approach real freedom, you must question everything, and thoughts are things. Another old friend of mine, a Jewish man from a wealthy family, I presume in California, named David, he used to stop and sit and talk with me about the true nature of God and consciousness, like with total equanimity and total equal respect, total timelessness. He did have a bad leg, so he would sit down and talk to me about the true nature of God and consciousness for like 20 minutes, decades ago. And it was really cool. We'd go deep, like go really deep. He may now be a Zen master. He rebelled against all of this forced online activity and microwave poisoning, as I did, presumably, because I didn't have a microwave cell phone for 20 years. But he took it a step further and rebelled overtly by starting a tea house, which it's still there, I'm pretty sure, where no pooters, no computers or cell phones are allowed. He has no Wi-Fi there. The Hidden Peak Tea House. He sells cups of tea from like $1.50, or I don't know, the cheapest one, to, there's some kind of weird kind of fermented teas to wealthy Chinese business guys for like $100 or several $100s a cup. It's a weird rich person thing. But he walks around, and when he approaches, his bald head, goatee, long goatee, and full black robes strike a strong impression. Like he kind of like, in his walking meditations, he almost floats by with you just see a black robe kind of floating by. Yet from the first moment he heard me espouse Gnostic concepts to the public. I don't know when that was, or before that, when I was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, when I was handing out flyers, the truth about the scamdemic, he'd quickly leave. Now, I might see him at the laundromat washing blankets with his wife or daughter. I'm not sure. He's got a grown daughter now and a young wife. Yeah, if I see him at the laundromat, he might say, "How are you doing?" or something, but usually he'll nod at me before rapidly leaving. Because those in Zen Buddhism might help you surrender, might help you come to personal peace. It's ironic because I totally disagree with Chuck, and I feel like Zen is a kind of more of a part of the Hinayana school because of its denial of the truth of the realm. It's surrendering to the world as it is as well. To corroborate that to a deeper level, Zen kind of teaches you to surrender to the world, the matrix as it is. How many great, it can give you personal peace of mind, but does that really serve you, your freedom and liberation? How many great songs or revealers of the truth about hell came from the Orient? The true, fully enlightened human flesh sack with an awakened essence can tell the truth, be really creative, yet not be caught in the mental dungeon of dogmas and societal controls of any sort, or virtually any sort. Chuck, you've traded the overtly Christian dogma for the smooth contradictions of Zen. Any uber popular tradition is thus obviously very suspect to me. The truth will not be said to or controlling the masses, even the tens of thousands, because it does not fit into any dogma. And yeah, until it is tens of thousands, then you ain't going to see freedom on this planet. Gnosticism is openly syncretic. In other words, it openly takes from Plato, from different sources. You know, Blavatsky Gnosticism or AI slop Gnosticism is going to be demonic, or, in the sense that it is going to tell you that Yaldabaoth controls everything and, wants to encourage the archonic takeover in that way. So, yeah. But maybe Chuck will watch this and think about it. It would be nice. I won't be shocked if he does, but I might be a little bit surprised. Or let's say more like I would be impressed if he watches this. Gnosticism is only syncretic. The full truth surrounds us all. The true beauty of nature, if you can get out into it, the true majesty. If you can get away from these fucking gadgets long enough, or if you're lucky as Chuck is, or John, to have a beautiful wife or husband you can be with and embrace in nature, to remember physically, to remember just with your thoughts. If you're fully sick and stuck in your fucking house, or stuck in the city, in the matrix, in the poisoned air, in my case, and beautiful nature with poisoned air, that I have to put on a hoodie in Santa Cruz at 1 o'clock with the sun out. Completely fake weather, okay? Even in completely fake weather, I'm still thankful for these trees. I'm still thankful for you. I'm still thankful for the Christ Sophia that really does shine through. But I'm not in delusion about that, unless, it is a certain proportion, unless the humans awaken. I'm not in delusion that because I don't know what the percentage really is. I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. But yeah, this was something that was really popular in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, and it's not so popular now. But I saw a young man reading a book about Tantra with a yin yang hoodie on at the Aptos library, sitting in the window next to my little tiny view of the ocean there. And yeah, I wanted to tell him, but he heard me mouthing off to the Archon, so I wanted to tell him I was impressed to see a 30-something-year-old guy like I was cultivating his energy rather than throwing it out or bringing someone into a hell realm. I didn't get a chance to. I probably scared him off when he heard me telling the Archon off when it was knocking stuff over. So yeah, this channel is all about the brutal and the beautiful, and yeah, the irony is that I don't necessarily contradict what Chuck says, but I contradict all dogma. And of course, Zen still has some dogma. So I say chuck the dogma and, strengthen that part and, do that shadow work, just like I need to do more than the 4 days I just did and facing that, the divine feminine in the flesh sack realm. I love you folks, whatever it is that you is. I love your essences. I love the pneumatic souls, if you will. I love the true being. I love Christ Sophia, even though she is horrifically flawed, and not John Lamb Lash, and not the original Gnostics, and most any real wisdom teacher has never said that she wasn't. But yet, we also say violent, blood orgy demanding gods didn't create this realm originally. And it is exquisitely beautiful here in Santa Cruz County, even under the fucking direct energy weapon attacks and the weather weaponry. And yes, it is an exquisite, beautiful, divine place to be, and our essences are amazingly powerful, creative things that have been hijacked. And yes, it is only up to you to rescue yourself. Loving you, folks. Somehow. Wish it well. You know I love you, but you just can't tell that you're in hell when you feel so good. While the world is going to nanotech destruction.